about to waste way too much of my time by installing over 40 years of revisions of Microsoft Windows. Will I succeed, or will I in the end succumb myself to hours upon hours of torture just to get that sweet 1 out of 10 video, only to have completely wasted my time and fail miserably, leaving me with a sense of existential dread? Keep watching to find out.
Now that I've gotten my retention stats in for the video, first up was installing MS-DOS in order to prepare. I used MS-DOS 7.1, which, while not officially released, was bundled with Windows 98 and was extracted and repacked by a group known as the China DOS Union. DOS 7.1 is special in that it officially supports FAT32 partitions, as opposed to earlier versions FAT16. FAT32 supports up to 2 terabytes of hard disk space, as opposed to FAT16's 2 gigabytes, so this will certainly work. I gave my virtual machine 60 gigabytes of storage, which should be enough for everything. I unfortunately made the grave mistake of selecting the option to install all the built-in add-ons, which in the end left me with this annoying interface that was more of a burden than anything else. Windows 1 was a simple install. It doesn't officially support versions of DOS higher than 4, although if you know what you're doing, you can get it running on even higher. I decided to give it only the most beautiful colors imaginable, along with a text file to show my progress. Next up was Windows 2. I accidentally installed the 386 version, but that's okay. I just had to install it in the Windows directory instead of the Win386 directory I tried creating. I loaded up Windows with Win86, which loaded up the system in real mode just so I could avoid any hassle. The amazing color scheme got overwritten, so I had to delete the Win.ini the system put in and brought back the old one along with a stern talking to and a spanking. I also decided to draw a painting to assert my dominance just in case it tried some shit like that again. Next up was Windows 3. I was extremely happy to see that it kept my color scheme during setup and even when I started up the operating system. Not too much to say about this one. Windows 3.1 went pretty smoothly until I actually tried using the thing. When I tried to boot it up, it kept giving me a message about the page over commit value in my system.ini file being too large. I lowered it and tried starting it up again, but it still gave me the same message. I eventually just settled with booting the system in real mode using Win/S. Windows 95 gave me a lot more hassle. I tried upgrading to the RTM version, but that didn't work. I guess it didn't recognize the FAT32 partition, so I went to go get the OSR2 release, which does support FAT32, until I realized that it doesn't have an upgrade option. The O in OSR2 stands for OEM, so obviously there wouldn't be an upgrade. I knew a trick though, and the setup went somewhat smooth from there. Until it didn't, who would have guessed. After restarting the system to enter the second stage of setup, it just booted right back into DOS for some reason. Usually the solution would just be to run Win, and that would get me into the second stage. Except that just gave me an error about something about the msdos.sys file on the root of the C drive. This file is usually read-only, but I took off those protections and removed the setting, and it worked for a bit, until I got a new error about there not being enough memory. What it actually means when it says this is that there's too much memory, so I lowered that and it ended up working. My color scheme only somewhat transferred over, however. Windows 98 setup kept complaining that it had low conventional memory, so I just ran setup with the flag that skips the conventional memory check. Other than that, it ran just fine, it just took a long time. After adding a funky little pattern to the wallpaper, it was time to upgrade to Windows Me. I had to do basically the exact same thing as Windows 98, since it was also complaining about the conventional memory. While setup was saving my files or something, it just crashed. I mean, it's Windows Me, but during setup, I just rebooted and tried again, and it worked fine. I gotta say, I really like this setup screen. It's less bland and gives it more identity. After looking at the weird gray Windows 9X theme one last time, it was time to move on to Windows XP. In all the times I'd tried doing this, I'd never actually gotten past Windows Me, so it was a matter of life or death here, and it actually worked. It looks like shit with only 16 colors though, but I was just gonna have to bear with it. After it rebooted for the first time, it showed this weird boot screen where it was just Windows. No XP or anything, it was just Windows. Then, for some reason, it went to a text mode screen saying that it didn't have enough memory to examine my hard disks. I guess it's like the conventional memory thing from earlier. I rebooted and it worked fine. The XP is back, which is good. It immediately went to a hard disk check, which was my first glimpse of actual color in this thing. Hooray! It then went back into setup completely fine. After setup was done, it told me to increase my screen resolution from 640 by 480 to 800 by 600, which I did. After that, it was time for the out-of-box experience. No music though, sadly. When it was time to go to the desktop, it brought up some weird login screen I'd never seen before, asking me to create a password. After I logged in, it then asked me to log in with Novell NetWare. It actually looked like my colors and background were staying until they were overwritten with the Luna theme. Whatever. I checked to see if at least some of the programs from the very beginning still worked, and lo and behold, the MS-DOS executive opens. The text looks a little strange, but it is a version of Windows from 16 years later after all. I changed my theme to spice things up and then went to move on to Windows Vista. I soon encountered an issue. I had to change my partition from FAT32 to NTFS. I converted it and setup worked fine. When I booted up the system, I was met with a notification saying I needed to install drivers for something. I was very surprised to see that it kept the briefcase from Windows XP, including its icon, making it stick out like a sore thumb in relation to all this. Now time to move on to Windows 7. I tried to load up the installer, but oops, I downloaded the 64-bit version. I went into the setup and it told me that I needed to install Service Pack 1 of Windows Vista first. This took way longer than I expected, but in the end I got in. My widescreen resolution was gone though, it only let me go up to 1152 by 864. Next up was to do this trick that I've been aware of for a few years that lets you upgrade a 32-bit operating system to a 64-bit one, so I could eventually install Windows 11. This involves two pre-release builds of Windows 8, builds 7955 and 7963 from the spring of 2011, as well as a tool called Show Hide Controls. Running the setup from 7955 with the install files from 7963, you could use Show Hide Controls to change the setting of what you want to keep during the upgrade from nothing to keep files and apps. Ladies, I know, I'm just such a hacker. My room's that way. And it worked. It's honestly really astonishing to me how this even works. But lo and behold, we're now on a 64-bit operating system, while just a few minutes, that's not right, hours ago, I was just on a 32-bit operating system. I thought from there that the natural next step would be to upgrade to the final release of Windows 8, right? Right? Well, as it turns out, Windows 8 can't upgrade from absolute jack shit apparently, so I thought to upgrade to the officially released developer preview of Windows 8, then upgrade to the final version, right? Nope, I did all that for nothing. I checked the cversion.ini file in the ISO to see what it actually can upgrade from, and 8508? The closest build we can run on a virtual machine to this is from 2 fucking weeks before the final build. But alas, I upgraded to build 8513 anyway, which is so unbelievably close to the final build that it might as well be the final build. And I know people will get mad at me if I didn't upgrade to the final build from here, even though I really didn't want to, but I did it anyway. Next up was Windows 8.1, a version which I really should have skipped, but I installed it anyway for posterity's sake. Here you go. The later versions have been quite simple to set up and install. I mean, you just click setup and go. No weird hassles or hardware issues so far. Oh fuck, I just jinxed myself, didn't I?
Hi, so I know when I first came out, I was a huge pain in the ass quack, and I kept bugging you because I wanted you to install me and use me so bad, but now, what if I just, didn't work?
Windows 10, the operating system I still use on my main computer. I know I'm a dumbass, but it just works. But god damn, it's bad in a virtual machine. I downloaded 3 versions of Windows 10 to try and upgrade to. 0 of them worked! Gave me the same error right before the second stage of setup. I tried increasing the RAM. I tried increasing how much hard disk space the machine has. I have no idea what's going on, and because I like stretching things out into multiple parts, don't take that out of context. If you have any idea how to fix this, please let me know in the comments and I'll make an addendum to this or something. The upgrade isn't over, but this video is. Good night. 850